There's been some breaking news and major developments in the case against DOGE. So, a federal judge blocks Elon Musk's DOGE department from accessing sensitive U.S. Treasury Department materials. A federal judge blocked Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, from accessing Treasury Department records containing sensitive personal data for millions of Americans, as stated by District Judge Paul Engelmeyer. The ruling followed a lawsuit filed by 19 Democratic attorneys general, always weird with that S, against President Donald Trump, alleging illegal access to financial data. Engelmeyer noted that access violated federal law and ordered the destruction of any downloaded material in Treasury systems. Because, it's very cool that these unelected officials, because these are 19 to 25-year-old children who have absolutely no experience in these departments. And it's kind of insane that we've just wholesale just bought into this going, this is normal. This is completely normal. Just when I thought that the dumpster meme with well, I guess that one also counts, but the dog sitting in the fire, this is fine. One of the most passé old memes at this point. It's completely relevant. But check this out, guys. High faculty, left-wing reporting. All our data and dollars belong to Elon Musk. Who, what, why? You know who has really low faculty? The peoplesvoice.tv. Far right. Obama judge blocks DOGE from uncovering Democratic fraud. Yeah, that's how they're reporting on this, guys. It's effing insane. So I want to take this opportunity to get Brian and Tyler Cohen's take on this, because he interviews one of his partners who is well-versed in the legal matter. So let's go into this.
This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we have major news on pretty much the biggest story in the country right now, which is this idea that Elon Musk's DOGE Commission has access to all Americans' sensitive data, including social security numbers, for example. A federal judge has finally stepped in. Can you explain what just happened?
Yeah, this is a blockbuster ruling from a federal judge.
Completely ignored by the mainstream media.
In New York City, who was asked on an emergency basis to block DOGE's access to these very sensitive databases at the U.S. Treasury Department, not just to block Elon Musk's access, right? Some of the earlier cases we've talked about, there has been this kind of like parsing about whether DOGE could still be in the Treasury Department, but it was read-only and they couldn't write, or whether only the special government employees could have access to the information, but not others. What this judge did is...
Do you know how many right-wingers I actually had to hear just saying the read-only thing? Like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Said nobody from DOGE can have access to these databases. Only career civil servants within the Treasury Department can have access to these databases, and that any materials or printouts or downloads of any information from these databases have to be destroyed by anyone associated with DOGE who may have them. So this judge has really, at this point, put a complete halt on the infiltration, the exfiltration of data, the infiltration with personnel, the embedding of personnel into these databases that have...
Every time you think of personnel, just think of it. It's literally these gaming kids.
Personally identifying information like people's social security numbers. This is a big, bold order from a very good, experienced federal judge in New York City. It's only a temporary hold until the case can be ultimately heard on the merits and decided. That is true about all these cases we're hearing about, and no one should worry about that. That's how the system works, right? Is that first there's an emergency order and there's sort of a status quo put in place, and then the case is decided from there.
Mark, this might be the cynic in me coming out, but who is to say that they're actually going to comply with this order if any folks who would be in positions of oversight are already Trump lackeys? All the inspectors general have been fired. And so who is there to make sure that they comply?
This is a great question, because honestly, I want clarity on just how much power the Trump administration has to dismiss the other inspectors general.
Right. And so, look, you sound like...
Because that lawsuit's still pending.
Like the comments that we've gotten at Democracy Docket when Democracy Docket reported this, and you sound like my Blue Sky feed. People who say, great, Mark, but they're not going to comply. And I understand the skepticism, Brian, because, Mr. Big Balls, the one guy, and I don't
Right.
remember, is he the neo-Nazi? There's one that's
No, this is two of them. One of them is a neo-Nazi, and I'm not gonna say allegedly because his old feeds have come out, and he has literally said that we need to get rid of Indian people, kind of thing. Like, no, he deserves the moniker of his racism. And then on top of that, you have the llama-headed dipshit who, apparently, like,
has sort of
he got caught leaking secrets at one of his last gigs. Real great
a
hire.
Nazi problem.
When we can't remember which one is Big Balls and which one is
Big Balls. Big Balls is the one that got caught leaking stuff.
the guy who wants to normalize Indian hate, I think that's when there's a general
There
culture
we go.
problem. I think that's
Right,
indicative of a
DOGE.
larger problem here.
Right. And of course, the vice president, with no other official duties to do, decided to weigh in
Right.
in favor of rehiring the guy in favor of Indian hate.
Yep.
While he has
While married to
go home to his Indian American
married to an Indian American wife and he has mixed Indian American children. Cool.
wife and his 3 Indian American kids, but I guess
love
that's
it.
the cost of loyalty to Donald Trump.
Yep.
Right.
Don't you just love it? Don't you just love seeing like just how blatant it is too, where these people are compromising like their entire lives,
But so look, I understand the skepticism that people
and money's not the root of all evil.
have here. But what I can tell you is that this federal judge, by
on,
issuing this
guys.
order
Come
as
on.
quickly as he did, I mean, the state of New York and the other states that brought this lawsuit brought it on Friday, and by sort of early in the morning on Saturday, this order was already in place. And like I said, it is a very sweeping order. Anyone who is caught with those materials or where there is evidence that they did not destroy them
This is my
will
favorite
be
part.
subject to contempt of court, which is quite
And I have a feeling we're going to see it because they're going to try pushing back, and they're really going to test the limits on this one. So someone's going to be a sacrificial lamb on that team.
quite serious.
Wonder if it's going to be Big Balls.
And the lawyers associated with it, they face problems if they don't make sure that their clients and that the executive branch knows this. Other
And that's the thing, because the lawyers are on the hook. I have a feeling that these kids are going to be
employees,
they're going to get a talking to, and Elon's going to pull his little Danzig. I actually think that I am above the law entirely because I know Donald Trump. We have all the permissions. We don't need
in
Congress.
the Department of Justice, or in the Treasury Department could face problems. But this is in some sense the most sweeping action we have seen any judge take.
Thank God, too.
In any
Seriously, it was taking a little bit too long for my liking because these emergency rulings can be handled within literally a day. So the fact that so many of these cases have just gone to court and the judges are just like, we'll take care of this later. I mean, this isn't even, we still have to deal with other parts of this. Like, yes, the Treasury one was the most alarming, but if they're going into like the Department of Education, they're trying to gut the federal government and they're doing it illegally.
of the
Like, that's honestly my biggest gripe about this. If they just went through the channels of like, using Congress and then Congress decide, because that's also what scares the crap out of me personally, is they control all they literally control the House, the Senate, the presidency, and the judiciary. So why are they doing this so lawlessly with a bunch of unelected officials? You have to ask yourself that. I don't care if you're a right winger, start asking those questions, because does that make any sense to you? Does it make any sense to circumvent a Congress that you have full control over?
cases against Donald Trump and the whole dismantling of government since he became president.
So this was with regard to Treasury. We have seen DOGE gain access into the Department of Labor, DOGE gain access into a variety of other organizations.
The unions are suing the department.
So is a
Suing DOGE.
ruling like this going to apply to other agencies, or do we just have to wait for those agencies to be harmed so that they have standing to go in and do the same thing? But really, by then we're just kind of chasing after DOGE as opposed to taking any.
That's got to be the worst feeling too, knowing like that they're gonna go for these other agencies. They've already said it. You know the game plan, but you can't do anything in anticipation for it. That's insane.
Proactive action against something that we all know that they're going to do anyway. So could this apply to other agencies even before DOGE goes in, or do we have to wait for DOGE to kind of wreak havoc before we can do something about it?
Look, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Yeah. So, this order only applies.
I love having guys like this, by the way, that are so educated in this. The fact that he is a lawyer, like this show is pretty invaluable for these types of situations.
To Treasury, but it speaks to a larger sort of norms and culture and expectations problem that we have, which it is good to see the judges are coming around on. Like, so to be clear, this is a big deal, this case in that journey. But let me explain it to you.
Yeah, sure. But you know what we needed to focus on this morning? Trump going to the Super Bowl because he's the first sitting president to do so. And there was something else about like Patrick Mahomes' wife.
When a federal judge has a lawsuit against the United States, against the president of the United States, against, cabinet officials, you can understand why they are typically skeptical of private litigants coming in and saying, we would like you to shut down the way in which the executive branch is operating in some key fashion. And when the Department of Justice lawyers show up in their courtrooms and say, look, Your Honor, we're operating according to what the president wants and what the Secretary of Treasury wants, and like this is all above board, courts are normally predisposed to be like, okay, I've got the Department of Justice. Yeah. They speak on behalf of the
Department of Justice's win record's insane.
The federal government. I've got cabinet
especially
officials.
Federal court.
In the normal course, they are not inclined to think the worst of what is going on. They assume that all things being equal, it is probably the private litigant who is on the wrong side, not the government who's on the wrong side. So what we have seen, though, over the course of just the last 7 days is a real attitude shift. Right. The first lawsuits that were filed, the courts were entering orders that you and I talked about that were being easily evaded. It was like a game of cat and mouse. They would issue an order and then the government would say, oh, well, we only assumed it applied to these people and not those people. And then we started to see the courts issue broader orders. We saw that order from a judge in Washington, D.C. about the OMB memo, who said, look, I don't care if it's an OMB memo. I don't care if it's a tweet from a press secretary. Like it applies. My order prohibits you from defunding these grants in any fashion. And that was the first time we saw a federal judge really, like, the aha moment went off, that deference to the federal government is not going to work here, right? You need to do these broader orders. Here, we saw the judge do it off the bat and said, I'm going to apply this order to everyone other than career civil servants. If you are not a career civil servant, if you are part of DOGE, hands off and you've got to destroy it. Yeah. Now, I understand we are still on the journey that you are laying out. You're like, when can this just be prophylactic to the entire federal government? We're not there. Yeah. Would it surprise me if we start to get there next week? No, it wouldn't, because I think these federal judges are getting tired about two things. Number one, they are annoyed, undoubtedly, that they keep being told that there is an emergency that they have to rule on immediately.
Yeah, and these aren't just Obama appointees, like that one completely bat crap crazy article was just like, it's because they're trying to hide the Democrats' corruption.
Judges have schedules like
it has nothing to do with the fact that these people should not even be able to step foot in that building near any of the computers that have our financial data on it. But no, they're going to gaslight you into thinking like, no, I need to go and fight for these children to go in and take care of the budget. They need to budget instead of, these people that we elected to do so.
Everybody else, they don't like having to set everything.
It's insane. They're letting this freaking llama-headed kid literally named Big Balls, and then another one that has literally racist posts, and they're just like, yes, these are our people. This is what, we are being controlled by the biggest idiots in the world.
Everything aside. And they definitely don't like having to set everything aside when it turns out that the government is consistently on the wrong side, right? Which is that the government keeps losing these emergency hearings. So what's happening is the judges are getting in their heads, like, I don't understand. This other judge told them to cut it out. and they're still doing it. And now it's interfering my docket. And so as this starts to snowball, I think you're going to start to get judges more and more annoyed with these and start to issue broader orders. The second part, though, Brian, and this is what we have to be on the lookout for.
I'm hoping for that.
Are we starting to see cracks in the lawyers in the Department of Justice or in these agencies? I took note that in one of the hearings late last week, it was actually
honestly just from an optics standpoint, how's that look? The fact that, the second that the Trump administration takes, the Department of Justice, well, all of a sudden their win-loss record just tanks. So much winning in MAGA.
A very senior supervisor who argued the case. Now, that is highly unusual. You don't usually have senior lawyers in the Department of Justice in a supervisory role having to show up in court. And I'm starting to wonder, not that it's a good thing if you start to see resignations, not that it's a good thing if you start to see the good people, leaving, but I'm starting to see the early signs of the willingness of some government lawyers to fight these absurdly illegal fights.
Why wouldn't they?
I'm starting to see that.
Why wouldn't they? What the hell is your job at that point? Like, seriously, you're just going to let them steamroll democracy just because it's like, well, I want to make sure that I can have a surefire shot at winning this case because my win ratio is all that matters to me as an attorney.
A crack. And so I think a combination of those two things may come to a boiling point in the next 5 days, next 7 days. And I think you and I will then be doing an episode to talk about where we go from there, because that would be uncharted territory.
Well, Mark, isn't it true that for some of these lawyers who don't want to put their own jobs on the line, I mean, they can be predisposed to sanctions or even losing their law license if they're going to go in because they've been thrown to the wolves by the Trump administration, who frankly could care less if some disposable lawyer loses his law license because there's going to be a line of other lawyers who are willing to take their place. But aren't some of these folks,
which is weird,
I guess, deferring more to the longevity of their own career than looking to do something?
All that waste that you guys are talking about, that they're going to have to pay out these lawyers, and that he's going to be paying it out on your backs, specifically MAGA backs, because you're the ones who are going to be donating to his funds. You always do.
Illegal for Trump.
I think that some of them are
easiest
doing
marks
that. Some
in
of them are looking
political
out for the
history.
longevity of their career. I think some of them are also just dispirited by it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be a DOJ lawyer for 5 years and argue cases regularly and never lose. Right. Let's be honest, like the DOJ usually wins their cases because I
think their success rate is something like 98 or 99%. And in fact, we've spoken at length about the fact that if anything, the DOJ is too timid to take an aggressive posture on some of these cases because they are so predisposed to only taking cases that they're guaranteed to win. And so when you have, Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, I kind of made the point before, but that's before Trump took over the DOJ. Now they're just throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks. God, it's so reductive, but that's exactly their strategy, guys.
Engaging in the January 6th stuff or in the classified documents case, it takes long because the natural predisposition.
You know what? I happen to be an expert in what sticks to was. Has anybody thought about taking a big dookie with some ketchup in it? Because that'll definitely help the consistency.
Is not to say, let's just go for it, even though it's not a home run.
No, that's exactly right. And I think that a lot of the criticisms we had about Merrick Garland and as you say, in the January 6th prosecutions, also in the voting arena, the place that I litigate most, they were too timid for precisely the reasons you say. But I think that so part of it is, I think these lawyers looking out for the longevity of their career, but part of it is also they are just shell-shocked at the prospect of continuing.
Well, no, because there's also precedent because so many of Donald Trump's lawyers have lost their law licenses or they have been held in contempt of court.
Going to
ask Jenna Ellis how she liked representing Donald Trump.
Court and being scolded. I mean, these lawyers are having a rough go of it in front of these judges because the positions they are advocating. I mean, in a different case that involved USAID, you had a Trump-appointed judge write an opinion that is like, there's a difference between putting someone on leave in Bethesda, Maryland, than putting them on leave in Syria. I mean, that doesn't sound like a big deal maybe to your audience, but that's a really biting and sharp retort for a career DOJ lawyer or any DOJ lawyer to
Yeah,
hear.
we've gotten so so used to Donald Trump and his inflammatory language in politics right now, where we forget that like other people don't talk like this, especially in like these bureaucratic positions. So this is a big deal. Like when a judge starts breaking the norm and starts issuing opinion pieces, that's a big deal. And on top of it, the fact that it was a Trump-appointed judge. Don't skate over that one, guys.
From a federal
when
judge,
it's your
no less
own
one
judge is
appointed
saying,
by Donald Trump.
I don't think so.
So you know, I think we may get to the point where we get to an inflection point where the courts become very, very irritated, much more aggressive in the scope of their orders, and the Department of Justice lawyers become.
Look, these judges, these rogue judges, he's going to start doing that. You know, he's already going to start doing that. So I hope that they also start like writing up some gag orders, because that's going to be wild when they actually have to gag a sitting president.
Just look at themselves in the mirror and be like, what am I doing?
And finally, let's finish off with this.
Maybe we can just sell it literally as a gag, you know, get him another Stormy Daniels, you know, maybe he'll get like nostalgic and we can just get, you know, have her just, why? Oh, it's getting hot in here.
I'm cautiously feeling.
This tastes very. Is this an apple? This is an apple.
Heartened about the prospect of the court actually doing what,
dude,
you
he is
for so long
the
have
color of like a roasted pig. So
said it would do, which is to serve as an effective bulwark against the worst excesses of the Trump administration. Does it look like, in fact, the court is able to stand up and do what, for example, Republicans in Congress won't do?
I mean, dude, this is the second or third time that he's asked almost the same question. Like, do you really think that they can actually do anything? Like, oh my God. Like, this is part of, I'm going to just say this is why we like almost court defeat, is because we're always just like, ugh.
To assert its authority, retain its autonomy, and uphold the law.
So the answer is yes, with an asterisk. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So you and I have talked about this a lot. And I've said, you know, the trial courts in this country, the federal district courts in this country are as good as they have been in a very long time. Joe Biden appointed a lot of judges. Some of the Trump judges, as we've seen, are not amused by these antics. Even a Ronald Reagan appointee in Washington State, as you recall, was, you know, sort of read the riot act to DOJ over birthright citizenship.
Right.
Then you get to the courts of appeals, right, which we really haven't heard from yet. We haven't yet heard the D.C. Circuit or the Second Circuit or the First Circuit or the Fifth Circuit or any of those. We haven't heard them weigh in yet, right? That'll be the next thing. And I kind of think they'll hold. I think that, you know, when you look at where these cases have been filed.
But it's like everybody's been saying, the whole game is to get this to the Supreme Court, which, again, I'm going to tamper down some doomerism, because you guys, I'm not sure why, but guys like Brett Kavanaugh, and I'm not trying to even give that guy any credit. That guy, like, he sucks. But for real, he did come out and say, I'm going to uphold, you know, my oath to the Constitution. He like, because they keep getting asked, like, well, when you're faced with this, are you going to you know, vote in favor of Donald Trump? Because do you put your your personal beliefs over your actual duty to the country? And that's where he just said, he's like, absolutely not. He's like, I wouldn't be qualified for the position if I did. And that again, it's not sensational. They don't put it out there. Neither side put that one out there, the right or the left, because they were just like, oh, well, that doesn't fit our doomer narrative where we can get everybody scared of everything, get them clicking on our stuff and watching our stuff. Well, hey, let's do a little handshake, under the table handshake. We will not cover this because this is bad for both of us.
They've been filed in Washington, D.C. The D.C. Circuit's pretty reasonable. The ones in Massachusetts go to the First Circuit. That's a fairly progressive circuit. The Second Circuit, New York, more mixed, but also a very smart circuit. So I kind of think things will hold there. But then the big wild card is, what does the Supreme Court do at that point?
Yeah.
You know, and they have kind of three choices, Brian. One is they just say, you know what, not it. Like, you know what, we don't have to hear these cases.
Yeah.
The lower court.
That's the thing. And I have a feeling that's what they're going to end up doing. Once the lower courts rule on it, they're not going to constantly rule against what the lower courts were saying. That, again, is just, I get it. Theoretically, they could, but let's not act like they already did. That is something that's already happening. I've had this discussion with somebody where they were like, "Oh, we have to do all this prepping." It's like, Okay.
courts are flooded with them. The lower courts are sorting them out. The Supreme Court don't, at least not on an emergency basis, have to get involved. Maybe we'll hear a case for next term, in 2026, but we don't need to do anything now, right? It's already February. Our term ends in June. We're just going to let this be. That's option one. Option two is they actually want us to show solidarity with the lower courts, and they actually just summarily affirm these lower court decisions. I'm not, I didn't fall off a turnip truck. That is not the most likely outcome.
Oh.
The third is that a conservative majority.
Okay, then you know what? He's the authority on this one. Then maybe it is time to doom her, because if he actually thinks that they're going to dissent and they're just going to go with Donald Trump anyway, then that's insane. We already thought that the Roe v. Wade thing was kind of a dissent, a major deal to the fall of democracy, but that would be it, because then it's just okay, so you guys literally just gave him, you made him all powerful, even over the courts. That's insane. That's insanity. That's insanity. It made me literally just bust into a Trump.
The Supreme Court decides they want to dive in.
That's crazy.
That would be that would be such a terrible thing, not just substantively on the law, but also for the court's credibility. For the Chief Justice keeps talking about, there are no Democratic judges and Republican judges or justices, and, their ethics are perfect and all of that. This is working itself through the lower courts just fine. The Supreme Court doesn't need to be in a...
Yeah, but no, apply the same logic. Trump judges, you keep doing that. Everybody does it for the lower courts, but once it gets to the Supreme Court, just because they're the taco Supreme Court, guess what?
Free to jump into these cases, and that would be my advice to them if they were to ever ask my advice, which they're not. But that is, of course, going to be the first test, and that will probably come in one of the birthright citizenship cases, just because
they're the taco Supreme with the old sour cream that they put on, the one that tastes a little bit funny, and also they put way too much on, and you're just you ruined this taco.
Those are a little bit further ahead, but my advice to Chief Justice Roberts is tell his colleagues, no one needs to hear quickly from the U.S. Supreme Court in any of these cases.
Well, I know that you have been covering this relentlessly. Democracy Docket is where I get all of my news in terms of what happens in the courts and these court decisions, these monumental court decisions being handed down. So highly recommend for anybody watching, not just to hear about this stuff as soon as it breaks, but also to support Mark and his team, which is what we should be doing right now. Please make sure to sign up for Democracy Docket. I'll put the link right.
Look at this model. Look at him. BTC. And him and his perfect hair.
Overnight, a federal judge blocking the Trump administration's plan to put thousands of workers at USAID on leave and reinstating hundreds who've already...
Gee, I wonder why they think that this is wasteful, guys. And do they ever hit that point where they're like, yeah, maybe they call us racist because, well...
been removed, putting pause on Elon Musk's
fucking
goal to gut the federal relief.
He really is. Dude, he's a movie villain, a comic book villain couldn't have been drawn to look more evil and just dead inside.
Agency that provides food to 32 million malnourished children and funds projects to fight epidemics and drug trafficking. The president says he wants Musk to go even further.
His gender-affirming care, all that plastic surgery, the hair, all of it.
Slash spending at the Department of Defense and the Pentagon. Raising concerns about potential conflicts of interest, Musk's companies have billions of dollars in contracts with the military.
Yeah, weird. And weird how MAGA is just meh.
I'll tell him to...
But they'll literally just be like, Nancy Pelosi's stocks.
Go here, go there. He does it. He's got a very capable group of people. But he will be looking at education pretty quickly, and he will be looking at military, too.
Protests against Elon Musk's sweeping role in the government breaking out across the country as Musk's team gained...
Those have not been covered at all, guys. Even TikTok was burying them.
Access to at least 10 federal agencies. And overnight...
I'm Dark Mecca.
Trump announcing he's revoking former President...
Yeah, Jack. It's almost like this oligarchy. Somebody should have done something about it. Yeah.
President Biden's security clearance in retaliation for having his own pulled by Biden after the January 6th riot. This terminates Biden's access to intelligence briefings, a courtesy given to former presidents. Sitting alongside Japan's prime minister, Trump said he'll...
I had a bunch of like trolls in my chat yesterday trying to like just be like, oh, what do you think about that? I didn't. When I was just like, I don't care. They were like, what? I'm like, I don't care.
Announced tariffs next week that match the duties.
Oh my God, his body language. What? What do you asked about the Time magazine thing? Oh boy.
Other countries impose on American products.
I'll be announcing that next week, reciprocal trade, so that we're treated evenly with other countries.
Trump also announcing Nippon Steel will make a major investment in U.S. steel after Biden blocked the Japanese company's $14 billion takeover.
Weird. An investment into U.S. steel, but it was just called a takeover bid. Weird.
Bid.
Odd how he totally just kind of shifted exactly what that was. So, guys, this is, you're going to see a lot of alarmist content out there. You're going to see a lot of just mixed. I mean, this is the whole thing, the shock and awe campaign. Like, even in the right-wing circles, they don't even know how to report on this because sadly, it's not even the fake news side of things. It is just like they're not getting the important information because they know their own voters and the people that are behind Trump. If they heard exactly how, like, what is happening, when my mom is a perfect example, she was kind of a little like laissez-faire about this, where she just, okay, maybe, it's not the worst thing because she kept buying into the narrative that they're cutting waste. And then I just brought it up where I'm like, do you understand that the Department of DOGE is essentially 6 people under the age of 25? And she was like, what? She was like, excuse me? I'm like, yes. I'm like, these people have no government experience. They are a bunch of tech bros. They want to essentially eliminate everything. And they want to eliminate all of your safety nets just so they can do a balanced budget. It's like you guys are giving them all this power and you're listening to everything that they're saying without acknowledging that they also have broken so many promises, that they have blatantly ripped you off. Again, even with Donald Trump's most sycophantic people should be able to admit that it's kind of weird that he can't run a charity in New York. There's reasons that you should definitely be alarmed. I mean, look at the fact that one of the first things he did before he even got into office, or like one of the last things I did, I should actually say one of the last things he did as a private citizen was he did a crypto rug pull on his own supporters. They didn't even try to mask it to try and get the left. Honestly, that was kind of my shock, was the fact that nobody has tried to reverse sell cryptocurrency to a bunch of leftists, package it in just like a bunch of Marxist destabilization of the economy theory. It's just like they couldn't even do that. They're just like, nah, we're going to focus on our base. You know what? Because they're just so dumb. They're so willing to just give us all their money, and then we can continue to take their money, and they're going to continue to blame their neighbors. It's brilliant. Completely brilliant. They're going to continue to just blame the left. I can't believe that it works so well. Look, we're very good at this. So anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this content, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps out the channel, and it makes you an awesome YouTube consumer. Also, you guys can watch my live stream. I stream from Monday to Friday, 4 to whenever. I usually start at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on Monday, Tuesdays, Fridays, and then on Wednesdays and Thursdays I tend to start around 2 o'clock on Wednesday and a little bit later on Thursdays. So keep those alert bells on, and also you guys can contribute to the stream. I have a link on the description, so I really appreciate it if you can help out the stream in any way. But those likes, those are the ones that do it. So I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one.